everybody. Welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name's JD. Who's here with me?
It's Michelle.
It's Michelle. It's always Michelle.
So sorry to those of you who hope. Those of you who think it might not be. Too bad.
Maybe one day, just one day, we'll turn it on, and Michelle won't be there.
Ugh, I'll be dead. It'll be a great time.
It'd be like, I don't know, maybe for some of them it's like that thing in Good Will Hunting where Ben Affleck is like, best part of my day is those few minutes when I'm walking up to the door, because I'm just saying to myself, maybe I'll knock and you won't be there. Like you finally just fucked off and got out of here because you're better than this. Maybe it's like that.
A couple episodes ago, you got mad at me for never seeing Good Will Hunting, and I still have it on my list. So I believe you that is a good quote. But it's on Paramount. I even looked up the streaming service. I just have not watched it yet because I have been watching all of Nip Tuck instead.
Oh, Michelle. Okay, well, anyway, we're here with a special episode to commemorate Hanukkah, which I believe we're right smack dab in the middle of right now. First night of Hanukkah was the 25th. That's Christmas for those of us in that part of culture. But yeah, Hanukkah 2019. That's the movie. Michelle, have you ever seen this movie before?
No, I have heard of Hanukkah, the Jewish holiday, but I had not heard of Hanukkah, the movie from 2019. And boy, am I sure glad that we chose to commemorate Hanukkah with this movie. It was the right choice.
Yeah, it was.
JD,
I know. I know, yeah. Michelle. Okay. I get the feeling everybody can already tell where this is headed. And look, I'm not even gonna lie. I think for frankly, perfectly acceptable reason. But anyway, we're just gonna dive right in. Here's the Descrippy script for this one. This is from IMDb, slightly edited. Hanukkah, a group of Jewish young adults are in for a festival of frights. Get it? Mm-hmm. Hanukkah. In some places titled Hanukkah Uncut. Except we tried for a long time to figure this out. And then it's slowly, what if there isn't actually an uncut version, and that's just another pun? Hanukkah Uncut, 2019, hour and 46 minutes. Michelle, what are your spoiler-free thoughts on this movie?
I went back through the history of our show at almost 300 episodes. I needed to go look at the movies that had gotten the lowest scores for me in the past. I was curious, completely unrelated. I was wondering in the entire history of our show if I have ever turned something off that we were going to review. And I haven't, and I still haven't, but boy, was it close. Here's the thing. The beginning part, I became physically irritating because I think any movie can be ruined by an obnoxious orchestra. And I really I was like, if the music is going to be this aggressive, this violin is doing whatever the fuck it wants. There's a trombone going crazy. Like, if I have to, listen to this music for an hour and a half, I will not do it. I really considered it. If they had removed the music, but, there was something physically grating to me about how aggressive the orchestra was. And that was in the first 5 minutes. Later on in the movie, there are some things where I was like, oh, that's pretty brutal and rad. That's cool. I'm glad that I saw this one scene. But I don't like to dislike things. I'm a very cheery person, and I would much prefer to like a movie, especially because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You definitely attempted to make a watchable movie. I can't fault you for that. This is an expression. Film is an art form. You didn't make something to be deliberately what this was for me. There were a lot of things I was supposed to laugh at and did not, but then there were some things that I laughed really hard at, and I think it's because I was in so much misery that those little moments really just like, I needed this. Thank you. I am so sorry. I am giving it a 1, which for me is the lowest score that I can give, with the exception of one movie that was just made to be offensive and upsetting, and so of course I'm not gonna like your movie. This was an attempt. If you were part of this movie, I promise it was not your individual fault. It is a collaboration of so many things, but God, if you were the violinist for this film, you personally, you can be blamed for my uncomfortableness for 5 minutes. You play a violin very well, but they should not have showcased you to the extent that they did. Hanukkah, one skull.
One skull for Hanukkah from Michelle. Michelle, before we even get into my spoiler-free thoughts, here's what I love about that. You know who did the music for this, don't you?
Who?
Harry Manfredini, the guy who composed the score for Friday the 13th.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the song on its own is bad. I am saying that I don't. Well, I mean, it is a full orchestra. And the thing is, I think that whoever edited this did not care about how the music fit the scene. When he made the music, he did not watch the movie. They did not sync up. These had no relation to each other. Sometimes there were parts, but there were other parts that they just put some aggressive music. And God, I'm realizing that's one of my biggest things that will ruin a movie for me, is aggressive, unnecessary music. I honestly think that if there had been no music in this movie, I would have not hated it. Well, I can't say hate, but like, I wouldn't have disliked it. I would have been like, oh, this is very indie, and okay, I can appreciate it. I hated the music so much.
Yeah, would you like my spoiler-free thoughts, Michelle?
Yeah, I guess.
We always passive-aggressively do that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I do.
Well, I do too. It's kind of our thing at this point with the. Anyway, first of all, I agree. There was a moment very early on where I was actively noticing the music, and that shouldn't happen. Maybe on like a second or third viewing, but that first time watching a movie, I should feel the music without actively noticing it. It should be contributing without taking the focus, and there were definitely moments where I was like, oh, this is an interesting music choice for this particular scene. Here's what I want to say about this movie without getting overly serious. First of all, I am not Jewish, all right? So I certainly don't speak for that community at all. But what I will say is this is a movie about Jews and Judaism that was made by a Catholic, and there's some things in that we're going to have to talk about when we get into the spoilers section. But I think as a production, this was, I mean, it's indie, right? It's very indie, but it was all right. It definitely gets into like Terrifier territory at one point. I also
was thinking Terrifier.
Yeah, so far as just the real aggressiveness of it. So on that side of things, I can't fault it, right? Like, yeah, it's very indie. These are, obviously maybe not the most experienced or trained of actors, and that's what. Look, but I mean, if that's our standard, then I mean, we got to throw out things like fucking Clerks and stuff on that nature, right? Also, it just is what it is. But there are some things in this that just felt like very low-hanging fruit, very obvious kind of jokes, playing on a lot of stereotypes in that way where it's clear that like there's not malice happening there, but it's still that sort of thing, right? Like there are jokes about, and they do of course put all of the worst things in the mouths of bad characters. But I don't know. We'll talk about it in more depth. I actually came down on the same place as you did. This was a one skull experience for me. Also, it's an hour and 45 minutes long, and it didn't need to be an hour and 15.
I am very glad that you looked up to see who made this, because I assumed a Jewish person made this movie.
Yeah.
And that's why I gave a big pass to a lot of things. But I think that if you're not part of a community, it's really hard to make some of the jokes in here. I have to assume God, because I want people to be good people, and I assume that they're good people, that there was some additional feedback from people who actually are Jewish.
Yeah,
and they're like, and that's funny as your friend.
There
but like,
was. There was, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But that's all for the spoiler-free section, I think. Do you have anything else on this part, Michelle?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, so this is the spoiler. Michelle, look, I gotta be honest. Do you even want to do the plot recap for this?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's try to remember what happened in this movie.
All right. Here is Michelle's valiant attempt at an extemporaneous, off the top of her head plot summary of 2019 Hanukkah, perhaps Hanukkah Uncut. Ha. Do you get the joke?
Yeah. Okay, so here's the beginning of Hanukkah. I searched on my TV for Hanukkah 2019 and had a very hard time locating it because my TV kept trying to just show me information about Hanukkah. So we're off to a bad start. But then I did find Hanukkah, and it said Hanukkah Uncut on Tubi, and I went, sweet. So I clicked it and I went, an hour and 45 minutes, uncut version. I want to find the normal version. I don't want extra time. And then before we started recording, JD and I had to go figure out what that was all about. And it's Hanukkah Uncut, probably a pun about circumcision, not because it's like a director's cut or like added material.
There's no evidence we can find of there being multiple versions of this film.
Yeah, so it's just an alternate title of Hanukkah Uncut or Hanukkah. So that was my beginning, and I went, don't love that. And I'm only throwing that in there because I don't have a lot more to say about the movie. So here's the summary. We start off with some strong puns. I love puns. You start a movie with puns, and then you show me Sid Haig, and I should be a happy camper. Mm-hmm. I should be forgiving of a lot of things. This is a Hanukkah killer who leaves the scar of David on his victims. There are some really funny things, but I could not pay attention to a lot at that point because I just had a violin attacking me. And I had a really hard time. And then I'm like, who is Judah? What is this? Why is this lady naked in a dirty bathtub? This boy, oh no, we're going to get into bad things happening to kids territory. JD's not going to like that. I don't really like that either. Oh, never mind. That's not happening. So there's a whole thing at the beginning. What happened? Who cares? Then we meet a bunch of friends who don't like each other very much. The one guy, he's got a roommate who's dating another girl, and the girl doesn't like her boyfriend. And she makes him go to dinner with her mom, but doesn't even tell him. I don't understand why she is so mean to her boyfriend. Break up. So basically everybody in the friend group is unlikable. I think just defining that one person, it's like, that's how everybody in this is. So there's a group of friends and they're going to a party, and they have a whole conversation in the back seat about who's fucking who, as though the people in the front can't hear them, because despite the really aggressive orchestra at the beginning of the movie, the car doesn't have any music playing. They like to ride in silence, but Sid Haig doesn't like to murder in silence, I guess. He likes an orchestra. Give him some full backing while he's doing his kills. So they're going to a party, and then they meet this Russian group that doesn't really make sense. And the punchline that so many of these Russian characters give is just, you're gay. And it's not that like a joke about like, the punchline is you're a homosexual or I'm a homosexual or anything like that. It is verbatim, well, you're gay, which I have not heard since middle school, and I did not find funny a single time, and it is the running joke, is, well, you're gay. Like, and I don't understand it. Like, it would have been, like, a quippier version where, like, the ending punchline is that, oh, I'm implying that you do not sleep with women like, some of those can be funny. This, like, literally verbatim, "you're gay." I have not heard that since middle school, so I don't get it. And then the one guy likes to just pretend to fuck a lot of things. He's also possibly the only character that I somewhat almost found funny, is the Russian guy who, and it's only because it's in, like, a, "oh, you're just like a drunk friend of mine at a party. This is kind of endearing" kind of way. It was just like a pity kind of thing. So they go to this party, which is a sausage fest. They keep telling us, like, "God, we hate that there's men here and the ratio is completely off." I don't think they ever make a joke about how it's a sausage fest and out of the two women there, one of them is a lesbian. Come on, you can't even, this is a very sexual movie. I don't think they ever even point that out. Like, so your chances of getting laid are way lower. See, I could have punched up that script with 5 seconds of effort. Oh, the first kill in this movie, it's people having sex in a car, and the one lady in the car tells him to just leave the tampon in and fuck her alongside it. And that alone, that's one of the most disturbing things I've ever heard in my entire life. Not really, but like, the uncomfortability of that does not sound appealing. And like, maybe that's your thing out there. But God, it made me cringe a little bit. The one girl who doesn't like her boyfriend hooks up with another guy who she doesn't like very much. And this was the part that actually made me laugh, where she's dirty talking and yelling, "Fuck me with that micro dick. I can't even feel it." And that legitimately was very funny to me, of just like how sad it was, because it's unexpected, and comedy is, unexpected. Oh yeah, by the way, there's a whole killer thing that's supposed to be going on. We're learning all about the friends and how they don't like each other very much, but there's also a Hanukkah killer. Slowly the friends get kidnapped. The one girl who is a lesbian, has her stomach bifurcated. No, the like front part of her torso is cut off in a very gruesome, Terrifier-like manner, and yeah, I kind of enjoyed that, like a ridiculous
skinned
gore.
Her torso.
Yeah, like skinned it, and that was pretty fucked up, and like, good job, but it's also like it's out of place here. Like, if this entire movie had tried to be fucked up, I would have been more on board. But I'm also like, that's really brutal. Where is that in the rest of the movie? We have a lot of nudity. I guess the other girl who was captured, which, like, bad things happen in Nazis, so that's good. But she falls in a hole and breaks her leg, and she's screaming a lot, and like, all of that appeals to me. I'm a fucked up person. But like, that just, it feels out of place compared to the actual plot that we're trying to add here. And then at some point I just blanked out while they were explaining what exactly was going on with that. Was he a rabbi or whatever that guy was all about? Yeah, he's trying to explain, like, Obadiah did this thing and there's a kid. And I was so checked out at that point. And then the one Jewish guy who was seen, like, what does he say? Like, not self-deprecating Jewish, but like a self-hating Jewish person. He's in there. And then he tries to talk to the killer and reason with him. And then there's a whole thing that happens in a synagogue, but truly, I paid attention when they were screaming on film, but aside from that, I was very into my cross stitch that I was doing and did not look up very often. This was really difficult, and it sucks because I love puns. A horrifying new tale of horror. That's
from the
great.
Dreidel to the grave.
Yeah, there's some good puns, and there was so much. I think I'm upset because I saw so much potential, like really fucked up kill scene right in the middle, and I'm like, where was that? It starts out very gritty, but with such an obnoxious backing track that I couldn't enjoy that moment, and then I was in a bad mood, and then all the friends are unlikable, so I don't care if they die, and yeah, it was. I am so sorry if you were part of this movie. Yeah.
What I love about that is we basically got somewhat of a plot summary plus your general thoughts on the movie all at the same time. It was kind of, no, that's fine. I agree with you on every single one of your points. First of all, like, the tone of this movie is chaotic, right? That opening was, first of all, way more intense than I was expecting. That first 7-minute scene with the backdrop, like when they brought that, and here's what it is about bringing out that kid. He wasn't wearing pants, right? Yep. So he, obviously not exposed, but he seems to be nude from the, at first I thought it was going to be some sort of weird, like, circumcision ritual thing. And then thankfully nothing happens to the kid. I got to commend them for that. That the kid, something happens to the kid, clearly, but you know what I mean? Nothing, no, there's no, but
they weren't trying to be edgy.
Well, no.
Well,
and
not at that
look, this is what I want to say about this movie, because I want to be clear. I think this is a perfect example of a movie that absolutely was not doing anything maliciously, but just did not read the room. It's everything you need. Like, once I heard that the fellow who wrote and directed this movie was not Jewish, I was like, oh, buddy, like, you are, for just the fact alone of doing that, you are really asking for trouble. And I read a couple of interviews, and he talks about how he's very steeped in Jewish culture, like he's been surrounded by it in depth his entire life. And he says that he tried to be respectful. In the credits, they mention it, and he also talks about it. They say they had what they refer to in the credits as Judaism consultants on the film, which one of the interviews I read states that one of those consultants literally was my sister's boyfriend. Which, once you know that, it's like, okay, your sister's boyfriend who does what and has what, and so what I found interesting about that credit is it specifically says Judaism consultants, and that makes me wonder, like, were they really there just to make sure that this stuff was, like, canonically accurate the way they were talking about it? And trying to be respectful to Judaism as a religion, because then it turns around and it does use, like, every, like, Jewish stereotype joke that you've ever heard, you know, stuff about noses, and even, like, I know you found it funny, but the whole tiny dick thing, like, that's a stereotype that's been going on.
Oh, is it a stereotype?
Yeah, it's a Jewish stereotype. Yeah.
The guy that she's fucking isn't Jewish.
Oh, well, even so, okay, fair enough, but...
I'm just saying, I've also just never heard that stereotype and did not realize that it might have been based on that.
She is, though, right? So...
okay.
But it's all these...
So, for the record, right, I did not laugh.
No, that's fine. That's fine. A couple, like, there are jokes about money... and that sort of thing. And again, a lot of these things are put in the mouths of bad, unlikable characters. And I get that, right? I've seen that before. I've used that, like even weirdly referencing Kevin Smith twice, but a movie like Chasing Amy. Yeah, there is some incredibly like offensively said stuff in there, but it all comes from this terrible person, and the whole point is that, or at least one of the points is that this person is terrible. But at the same time, it feels like maybe we've reached a point where we're past that, right? Like maybe we've moved on from that a little bit. I also agree with you so much on the number of times just like, ha, you're gay was a punchline.
Verbatim.
Right.
Verbatim.
Just
so weird.
Come on. Like, we're really doing in 2019? Really? Like, if this was some movie that I had gone back and it came out in 2002 and it was like, okay, it's maybe a product of its time. It's 2019. Guys, I mean, you know, and again, I can't say it enough. I don't believe any of this was done maliciously. It's just, this is the issue of stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
And I also,
my problem... Oh, I was just going to say, my problem is not that it's offensive. It's just not funny.
Right. And I can't stress enough, like, I'm not Jewish, right? So I'm not saying, what I'm saying is that just me as an outside observer, this at least felt like I feel like regardless of anything, there's a good chance that plenty of Jewish people would find this movie rather offensive. And ultimately, the only point I'm really coming back around to is this is why a Catholic shouldn't have made this movie in the first place. Because for all of your best intentions, you will never be able to escape these impressions, especially when you're playing these very lowball, stereotypical types of jokes. I think it was just a misguided effort on a writing part. I think had the absolute best of intentions, and it just collapsed.
You mentioned Judaism consultants.
Yeah.
And one thing I do have to give them credit for is that they did try to be accurate, to like, here's how the days work, here are the specific passages that this guy believes that they are, and like, that's cool. There was definitely like some educated stuff there. It's just not entertaining.
And that's also part of what reinforces for me that belief and genuinely that none of this was done maliciously. It's just, again, a perfect example of these things that are so ingrained and steeped into culture that there are still people who maybe don't understand what the problem is, right? And again, ultimately, that's why maybe he wasn't the guy to make this movie. And I think that's ultimately the source of all the difficulty here. In 100%, you said it earlier, if this movie is made by a Jewish person, then I can't say anything, right? Because that removes so much conflict from the equation. You know, it just, I mean, honestly, I'm glad I got to watch it because I got to rant, I guess, a little bit about something a little bit more serious that we don't get to do all the time. But I do, after all of that, I do want to reinforce, like, as a production, as an indie horror film, I thought it was really well done. The incredible gore and violence at the end, really well executed, like very reminiscent of stuff from Terrifier. I know you're a big fan of that extreme violence, Michelle. How did you feel about that?
That was one of the few moments that I actually enjoyed. If this had tried to be like more extreme and have those moments in here instead of trying to be like campy and then funny in a way that's not funny, like, even if it had been boring, I would have preferred that over this forced comedy that just did not make me laugh. And I'm like, I would have preferred like just a serious discussion in comparison to this. So I did like that. I thought the effects were good. When they did have those moments, that's why I'm like, it's not any one specific person who I can blame for my unenjoyment of it. It's just so many combinations of like little things that felt off. Like, here's an example of just like what felt off. When the guy is laying in the bed watching that Jewish music video that comes on, and he's laughing his ass off and being like, this is the most offensive thing ever, and like, nobody's gonna believe I've seen this. And it's not even that bad in comparison to like a lot of things. Like, have you not been on the internet? So it's like the movie is trying to tell me this is hilarious. You can see it's hilarious because this guy is laughing at it. This is offensive. You know that because this guy is saying it's offensive. But what they're actually showing doesn't match what that guy thinks it is. And so it's hard for me to like believe
I don't know.
it.
I think force feeding a Jewish a very stereotypically, at least from a visual standpoint, Jewish person strips of bacon is probably. I mean, it's not the most severe thing ever, but it's certainly not very nice.
It's not a level of nobody is going to believe that I saw this.
Oh, sure.
Which is
yeah.
which is what he's saying. He's like, this is the most offensive thing ever. Nobody is going to believe me. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely believe that a person dressed up as a Jewish figure and ate bacon.
Again, this movie was made in 2019. I think the first time I watched somebody be violently killed on the internet, it was 2002. So it's like, what are you talking about? We have reached a point where nobody's ever going to believe this is something that nobody should ever say ever again. Nobody's ever going to believe I saw this. Yes, they will.
You'll find somebody to believe anything on the internet. Maybe this was written in the early 2000s and he just did not change the script and then made it in 2019.
I suppose that's a possibility. I think I did see in one of the interviews I read that he had mentioned it was something he had been thinking about doing for a long time. So maybe that's possible. With regard to the special effects and the violence, though, one thing I did want to point out is I don't know how much you marked it, but like while there are both male and female victims in the film, the vast majority of the most severe and brutal on-screen violence and gore is all perpetrated against women. And I'm just like, I just feel like, again, these are things that we're just like, some people are just not stopping to think about because they don't think they're that important. And I don't know. I guess maybe I'm a bleeding heart who shouldn't be a horror fan. I don't know. But I think it's perfectly possible to make these movies without, just put a little bit more specific consideration into those things. Take a step back, or maybe ask somebody else to look at it and be like, hey, is there anything I'm not seeing in this that you think might, be an issue in some way? I don't know. It just did a lot of things that made me uncomfortable in a way of just like, oh, this seems kind of, I don't know, kind of in bad taste, but not in like a horror way.
Our show has, what's the word I'm looking for? Shown me that often if the writer and director are the same person, that I am more likely to find faults in that film that I can't get past. And I'm realizing that in most cases, I think you need that second set of eyes to interpret what was written and then change it so that you have a melding of like these two minds agreed on this being like how this should be portrayed. And obviously sometimes that doesn't work out, where the writer is very upset and it wasn't their vision, obviously. But I think that works a little bit better because it is a second set of eyes going through the work.
Right.
And being like, this part I don't like, this we can do this other way. And then you have a combination.
And then I think you're starting to see that in certain ways. Like, for example, with Daniels and them working as a team, like, and being credited with everything as a team, playing things off of each other. What's that group that does Radio Silence? Who is that collective that did the one Scream movie and some other stuff, and they work as a collective in that sense. And yeah, I just I feel like I'm not saying, and I think you would agree, something being written and directed by the same person is guaranteed to be problematic or
the substance.
But the chances are higher. That there are things going on that would have benefited from a second opinion.
If I watch a movie I dislike, now when I go to the IMDb page after, if I see the same writer and director, or the same person was a writer and director, a lot of the time I go, oh, that makes sense. It's just a thing that I'm realizing. I try not to look at credits before I watch a movie because I don't want to be influenced by like, oh, this is similar to their other work, or kind of going into it with that preparation. Sometimes I'll accidentally glance and I recognize the name. But I do try to go into it very blind and then afterwards go to IMDb and check out all the credits. And just a lot of the time I'm realizing that if I see the same name, I go, oh, that's what was wrong with the movie. That alone can explain it, is that there wasn't a second set of eyes and there was a lot of creative freedom. And I'm okay with people having creative freedom. It's just often if I don't like a movie, that is what I will see on the page of same writer and director. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, for sure. I will say, like, I mean, again, this is a movie that didn't work for either one of us. I was actually kind of concerned that we were going to get a real limp episode out of it moving into the end of the year. But I mean, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it and, talk about some a little bit more significant things. I mean, I guess we have gotten a chance to do that more frequently with a lot of the really rad issue-driven horror movies that are coming out lately. But, yeah, Hanukkah Uncut.
Here's what I am happy about. I was very concerned that this was going to be so offensive that you and I couldn't watch it, and that it was going to be like, oh, this was made by somebody who seems to hate Jewish people.
Right.
And they are completely mocking the religion altogether. And like you said, this actually, oddly enough, even with like the bad jokes, it doesn't feel like it was made by somebody who hates the religion and wanted to like show you how bad it is. And that's a weird, like kind of a weird dynamic of like, oh, this was not made well, but it was not made with bad intentions.
It was a misguided effort, I think.
Exactly. Where they went, like she even says in the movie, there needs to be more Hanukkah-themed horror movies. And yeah, I agree. And I have a feeling that's what the creator Eben McGar had in mind as well, of like, yeah, we need more Jewish horror movies. Nobody's making one. I'll make one. And they tried to be like... But, it just, I do have to say, like, I went to their IMDb page, and they have other movies that are also very small and indie, but nothing is rated as lowly as low as Hanukkah, so I do kind of want to go, like, check out the other stuff.
I saw one on there that I believe is called House of the Wolfman, that just based on
that looks cool.
The image alone, it's something that I definitely think I'm going to check out. Because, again, as a production, like, I would imagine the reason there was just the one real heavy set piece in this is that, probably a budget issue, right? Whereas with Terrifier, the benefit Terrifier had is Damien Leone is a special effects artist. He's probably got half of the stuff he needs just laying around the house, right? Or in his garage or whatever. So he's able to do more set pieces. But yeah, I thought it was effectively made. And I want to make sure that is very clear.
House of the Wolfman is on YouTube and only an hour and 16 minutes.
Well, I guess I know what I'm watching. Today I will be watching House of the Wolfman, and I will also be watching Adult Swim Yule Log 2,
branching out,
which I didn't even know was happening. And so I remember Yule Log being like kind of hit and miss for me. I also remember there being one line in particular in that movie that I won't say out loud because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's very upfront. Like, I think it's within the first 10 to 15 minutes, and it just it's one of the skeeziest lines I've ever heard. Anyway, I'm excited
You're going to have to message me because I don't remember which line.
I will tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's on my agenda. We'll be, we gotta, go ahead.
Oh. I was just going to say, I feel so weird about, like, not hating the person who made Hanukkah 2000. It's a weird feeling of, like, oh, you tried. Like, I don't hate anybody in this production. I don't even hate the movie. I did not enjoy it, but it's weird. Usually I'm like, I hate the people who made me watch this.
Yeah,
I hate you so much for putting this together.
I'm the one who made you watch this.
I feel weird. Maybe it's because it's Christmas Eve and I'm just feeling, the holiday spirit. I will say that I've never believed there's a war on Christmas until I saw this movie. It absolutely ruined the holidays for me. I had a lot of snarky things to say that were not true, but were funny.
And ever since that one dude got upset with us for a 3.5 skull rating, which, by the way, is a strong positive rating, I'm always nervous that somebody's going to hear our episode and be like, hey, fuck you. And I don't want to, except for the people who made that one movie that we don't talk about. They can be, hey, fuck you all they want.
Well, they made a movie that they don't want people to enjoy. That's why I don't feel bad about, like, they anyway.
Congratulations, you succeeded. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say about Hanukkah Uncut, perhaps not Uncut, I don't even know. Michelle, do you have anything else to say?
I was hoping I would, but no.
All right, well then say goodnight, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShutter.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShutter on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter, if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShutter.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShutter.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot. See what happens. We Watch Shutter is a production of Rat Factory Media.